Hey everybody, what's going on? Coach Grazione here. In today's rendition of Hey Coach, I just wrapped up some client calls and one of my clients asked me, hey Coach, how do I perform the banded Romanian deadlift? And I thought this was a fantastic question because I can't necessarily find too many videos of this exercise available online, and I figured, hey, why not just go ahead and make my own? So if you're somebody who struggles to feel your glutes when you're doing any form of deadlift, conventional deadlift, box deadlift, sumo deadlift, banded deadlift, whatever type of deadlift you're doing, this video is going to massively help you improve your mind-muscle connection with your glutes when you deadlift. There are numerous ways that you guys can incorporate a band on your deadlifts, but some of the biggest mistakes that I see are that a lot of people are setting the band up too high and it's actually causing them to be off balance and thus limiting the amount of load that they can put on their body to maximally train their glutes and their hamstrings. So let's go ahead and walk you guys through 3 ways that you can attach a band to some form of low anchor point and then attach that band around your pelvis. So the first one is going to be simple. If you have any form of squat rack, you can take yourself to Lowe's or Home Depot or some type of hardware store and you can pick yourself up a Husky strap with a carabiner. I think I may have paid $5 for this specific Husky strap and carabiner, and it's came in handy for a lot of different various glute exercises. Now essentially what I do is I just take a band just like this. It could be any form of band. You would basically adjust the band resistance depending on how strong you are. Now in most cases I will work myself up to maybe using like an orange band, which is typically somewhere in the middle. But if you're new to this and you're not used to having any form of resistance, pulling your hips back into hip extension, I would start off with something pretty light like a red band. And basically all you're going to do is you're going to take your red band, you're going to attach it to the carabiner just like this, and then you're going to step into this band just like so. And the second way you can do this is taking that same band, wrapping it around any form of bench just like this, running it through itself, pulling that band down, and then step into this. And another way that you guys can do it is just find anything that's a low point to the ground. Take your band and you can either just throw it over the bench like this and step in, or you can loop it inside of itself and step in. Guys, so let's go ahead and do a virtual walkthrough here of how to perform the banded Romanian deadlift. Take the band just like I showed you in example number 1. Run it through the carabiner. You're going to step in. Now the band is set on my pelvis. Now remember what I said about keeping the band anchored at a low point. The problem with some of the videos that I've seen here on YouTube is that a lot of them are applying band tension at hip height, like this. And they're essentially walking into this. Now if any of you have ever tried this, can you get some form of resistance on your pelvis to initiate a glute contraction? Yes. However, something that I've noticed is that this actually makes me feel somewhat off balance, like it's taking some of the weight off of my feet. When I take the band and I attach it to a low point, I actually feel like it's working with my physiology because my hips are going into hip extension and the band is actually pulling me in the direction that I'm trying to go. When the band is here high, your hips are actually coming back and down, whereas the band is trying to pull them straight backwards. So I take that band, attach it like that, step into it. Now in this position, my hips are already loaded. And again, depending on if you're brand new at this or not, you can choose to use a heavier band. I typically use a band about 2 or 3 levels up from this one. But if you're a beginner, I would highly recommend just starting off with a Rogue red band. Now in this position, where do we want to set our feet? In most cases, we want to be in a position where we feel the most power, okay? Now, in most cases, in specific athletic endeavors, you would do things like jumping or accelerating or sprinting or something like that. And wherever that stance is for you, for some people it might be here, for some people it might be here. Wherever that stance is for you, go ahead and assume your most powerful stance. Now I'd say for 95% of people, that stance is going to be inside your shoulder width. Now you also want to take your femurs and intentionally kind of focus on driving them out. Now what this is going to do, anytime your femur abducts away from your body, or your femur opens away from the body, it recruits glute medius. This is also why so many athletes typically have well-developed upper glute muscles, or they have that shelf kind of looking glute. It's because they've done so much work that requires their knees to open, whether that be side shuffling or jumping in this position. A lot of athletes, you'll notice, they have very well-developed upper glutes. Now this is the stance. Now from here, what do? Essentially what you want to do, grab the bar right outside your thighs so that there's no interference with your hands and your legs. From this position, you want to think about pulling your upper arm back and down. And what that does is that forces scapular retraction and scapular depression. So basically retraction is back, depression is down, and then you want to preserve that through the entire exercise. So from this position, all I'm thinking about doing is driving my pelvis forward, and the bar is unracked. Now from this position, I'm going to walk out 1, walk out 2, and I am set. This is my power stance. I am set. My upper back is tight. Now from this position, what I'm thinking about doing is taking my pelvis and going straight backwards into hip extension. Driving my pelvis back, 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 back. Stop. Now this is as far as I need to go during the Romanian deadlift. A lot of people make the mistake of going all the way down to the floor to the point where their back can no longer stay in a neutral spine position. Now what I mean by neutral spine position is, if you could see my back right now, which I'll go ahead and move the camera so you can see it. Alright, so like I was saying, if you could see my back right now, you would see that it's neutral. So now you can see that my back is in a neutral position, meaning that it is not rounded, or there's no rounding going on at my spine. I'm in a neutral position. Now from this position, this is as low as we essentially need to go for most folks. Now if you can get a little lower than this and still maintain a neutral spine, then go ahead and take it down, but only you can determine how low you can go before your back may start to round, which we obviously do not want. So, some really good cues that you can utilize when you're doing the banded Romanian deadlift are going to be driving the hips back, 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 stopping where you need to stop to make sure that you don't go into any sort of spinal flexion. And then from this point, all you're thinking about doing is pushing as hard as you possibly can through your heels, driving the pelvis forward, okay? So drive the pelvis forward, glutes down. Pelvis back, 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 back. Drive the pelvis forward. Down, 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 down. Drive the pelvis forward. Down, down, down. Drive the pelvis forward. Now if you want to get really, really strong at this, something that I could potentially recommend to help you improve your isometric strength would be lowering yourself down and just stopping right here. Now I don't care how strong you are, if you do this for long enough, it is going to wreck your spinal erectors. Now most people's limiting factor when they're doing any form of deadlift, Romanian deadlift, sumo deadlift, whatever it is their spinal erectors. So if you're somebody who lacks any form of spinal erector strength, would highly recommend you doing some isometric holds. So basically what the band does is, as I'm going into hip extension, I have the feeling that something is on my pelvis. Now because I have the feeling that something's on my pelvis and I can physically feel where I should be contracting, driving through that band, it's very similar to a palpitation, to where if I'm training my biceps and I'm physically touching my biceps while I'm training them, I can get a better mind-muscle connection because my sensories are focused on my bicep. In this sense, my sensories are focused on my hips and my glutes. So with this band here, I can drive through and I can really focus on squeezing my glutes at the top of that movement. Now do keep in mind, when you get to the top of that movement, you don't need to hyperextend and come way back. All you have to do is get a maximal glute and hamstring contraction and then go back down. Keep in mind that a lot of muscle damage occurs in the eccentric phase. So essentially you would want to stay in an eccentric phase and not necessarily come up and rest at the top, but just keep the muscle under tension while you're performing the banded Romanian deadlift.